to the ABC Podcast.
Always be cool.
The show where your hosts, DC and BK, showcase your local business and real estate pros going gangbusters in leadership, community involvement, and just being cool.
Here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs, mortgage experts at Summit Lending, and partners in crime, Darren Copeland and Bobby Kerr.
All right, everybody, it's the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland.
What's up, everyone?
We're really excited today. Today we have Kansas City drummer and CEO of Steps of Faith, Billy Brimblecom.
All right, everyone, here we go. Born in Kansas City and started acting and playing drums at a very young age. He's an alum of KC Comedy's sports troupe, studied music at the University of Kansas, go Jayhawks, lifelong friends with Jason Sudeikis. He has performed on stages all over the world for 35 years. He is the CEO of Steps of Faith Foundation, currently lives in Lenexa, Kansas with his wife and 2 children. All-around awesome guy, Billy Brimblecom Jr. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. All of those things are true.
Yes.
Even the... I'll take the awesome guy.
Yes. I added that.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Assumption.
I didn't see that as a bullet point, but thank you.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Very good. Well, Billy, so what we love about this show is bringing awareness to some awesome people, awesome organizations that we get to feature. We've done some phenomenal Kansas City-based, national-based charitable organizations, and of course, you've got one that we're going to talk about with Steps of Faith. But before we get into all of that, man, your story is pretty incredible. And I'm just going to list off some of the extra things that DC didn't because, there's like a laundry list.
That's a huge book.
Musician signed to a major record label at one point. DC said the improv comedy actor, best buds with Ted Lasso himself, Jason Sudeikis, which, by the way, I've got my...
There you
my
go.
headband, my Believe headband right
You
there.
got some swag. That's good.
Nice.
How about your Steps of Faith has raised over $3 million to pay for prosthetic limbs for uninsured amputees. An organizer of Kansas City, one of Kansas City's largest sought-after events with Thundergong. Amputee yourself from cancer, appeared in Netflix series Girlboss. What? And a drummer for one of Kansas City's best tribute bands, Summer Breeze, which we've got some friends that love that in addition to us. Man, we're really gonna struggle with things to talk about today.
Yeah. We have no content to where to start. That's impressive, man. That's a huge laundry list.
It's a bit of a, you go on these adventures.
So was it something about the water in Shawnee Mission with all you guys out there? I mean, what a collection of talent, coming out of there with all you guys.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I always have said there's something in the water with drummers coming from Kansas City born in the 70s. Right? I mean, just like a lot of really, I know I'm not answering your question, but
it's okay.
But a lot of great drummers.
Who else?
2 of my favorite drummers that I would list along with...
Because I'm a drummer, but born in the 80s.
Yeah,
so.
well, 80s, we'll say that too.
Yeah.
But, along with, John Bonham and Ringo and Stuart Copeland and Dave Grohl and blah, 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 blah. Jason Gherkin.
Yeah.
Who I have the benefit of seeing a lot because I grew up here, but is one of my favorite drummers of all time. And Eric Moline.
I don't know.
Eric Moline was in Ultimate Fake Book, Truck Stop Love, all these incredible bands. And these are 2, those guys are up there with all those other guys, as far as I'm concerned. So a lot of great drummers from here.
Well, yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So let's just jump right in. Let's talk about the big thing that's coming up that your life is kind of enveloped with right now with the event Thundergong. So first of all, why don't you give a little bit of the background, tell the story for the listeners that are unfamiliar with it, and then we'll get into all the questions because DC and I have a ton because we've not had the privilege to be part of the event.
Right.
But it is an amazing thing. So ready, go.
Yeah, Thundergong is the biggest fundraiser of the year for the nonprofit I run, Steps of Faith Foundation. And so Thundergong is basically like a crazy rock and roll variety show. Jason hosts and performs, and we have, friends of ours and his from SNL and that world. Will Forte, Fred Armisen usually does it.
That's awesome.
They're so funny.
And these guys that are well known, but not for being singers. But it's a concert through and through. I mean, there's funny moments because there's funny people involved, and Jason's hosting. And some of the musical things we do are funny, but it's really everybody playing music. My band Summer Breeze is the house band, and but then there's also in the past we've had tons of great world-class musicians, Wynonna Judd, Chance the Rapper, Ben Harper, you name it, The Darkness last year.
Holy smokes, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going on tour with some of my buddies, the Comancheros.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, they're playing here in
they're
a couple weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's again it's a concert through and through, but kind of feels like a variety show because of the comedic aspect here and there. And it's raising money for Steps of Faith. We're talking about the things that Steps of Faith does and helping people, and it's just a really fun thing for Kansas City that is unique that you can't really get anywhere else.
Well, and let's just read some numbers on this because I want people to understand what a huge deal this is. So last year in 2022, this event alone raised over $600,000.
That's right.
Right, which is amazing. And then over the last 6 years, over 2.1 million. And also that has led to helping over 1,000 people with any needs that they have with not having the insurance on prosthetic, limbs, which is the whole purpose of your foundation, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's a massive amount of money and people that you're helping.
When you lay it all, I don't, I'm not looking at the metrics all the time, even though I have to talk about them. But I'm very lucky. It's a good job. I'm very lucky that this opportunity came to me and that we are where we are. And, Thundergong is very hard and takes up a large part of the year and is where a lot of the money for Steps of Faith to keep the, engine going comes from. Sure. But it's worth it. And I think it resonates with people just because it's, with Steps of Faith, with Thundergong, all the things we do, we just really try to cultivate a culture of kindness and just, keeping weirdos out. You can get a lot of weirdos coming your way when you got a bunch of famous people in a room together.
I was like, what do you mean?
But also, Jason and I were friends since we were teenagers. And so it really goes back to that. Will Forte was one of his best friends. He's become a very dear friend to me. I met Brendan Hunt back in 2004 when Jason got married.
For those that are listening, Brendan Hunt is from Ted Lasso.
Yep, Coach Beard. He did the very first Thundergong with us back in 2017, and so it's really just like I think a lot of the reason it resonates with people, other than just being really fun, is it's just like Jason and I are doing the things that we grew up loving and doing together, which is just being silly, making each other laugh, playing music. He's a hobby drummer and loves music and loves to sing. And I was with him when he bought his first drum set at Explorers Percussion.
Oh, man, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace. In 96, I think it was.
Yes.
Anyway, so it's like it's the stuff that we've always done together. But yeah.
That's all. So how did you come up with the name Thundergong for the event?
It's kind of nonsense, but there was a method to the madness of it. Basically, we were trying to come up with. Jason had the idea. He was like, "What if we call it?" So, and let me preface this because it sounds weird. A old school slang term for the drums is the skins, based on the things you're hitting, the heads, the skins. You're playing the skins, man.
Right, beat the skins.
Beat the skins. And so he was like, "What if we called it skins for limbs?" Which is not a bad idea, but for some reason, when you put those two things together, it just sounds like gross and weird. So it's a better idea on paper. And so then I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. So let's try to think of something like that. So percussive party is really what we were coming up with. And then my dear friend Micah Smith, who does all of our graphics and branding and design for everything for Steps of Faith and for the event. He and I were sitting together, and I had this. I still have the note in my phone of just like this kind of word salad. And so I was like, "What about gongs of thunder?" And so we were like, "That's it." And he was like, "All right, let me get working on a logo." And then like a week later, he's like, "I got the logo, but it's Thundergong." And I was like, "Oh," and I was like disappointed because I was like, "We got it. It's gongs of thunder. That's ridiculous sounding." And then once I saw the logo, I was like, "It is Thundergong." So there you go.
Yeah, it's even more ridiculous sounding, and it works.
Yeah,
like it's perfect
with an exclamation point at the end.
Like you're not sure, is this appropriate? Is it inappropriate?
Yeah,
like, Is it? But it works.
What are they talking about?
We are saying Thundergong with a G, thunder, which is So I always just say it's like loud. People are like, sometimes we'll be on like live TV, and they're like, we don't even want to know what that means. And I was like, it's not dirty. It's like percussive party.
Yeah, it's a gong.
Right. Yes.
It's an instrument.
Loud percussion. That's what it means.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So let's take a couple steps back, and I know you've had to tell this story a million times, but I think for the listeners, it's well worth it. Take us back to 2005, and the story of your diagnosis and how this all came about.
Yeah. So I had pain in my left ankle. I was in a really bad car wreck in 1999. K10, right as I was pulling into Lawrence. It was snowy. I swerved, hit the brakes, and slid, and the jaws of life were used. It was very, very gnarly. And I crushed 2 vertebrae in my back, and it was a mess. And I'm very lucky that it wasn't worse. The insurance adjuster, when my dad I was in the hospital, met this guy because my truck was totaled, this little pickup truck. He said, "I'm really sorry for your loss." And he's like, "Oh no, he made it." And he was like, looking at this truck, that's shocking.
Wow.
To me. Yeah.
Oh, so he thought someone had deceased, passed away
thought
in that thing.
I died in that car wreck. Yeah. So, long story short, later that summer, I started having this pain in my ankle, and then it was really, really bad for 3 nights, and then went away for 3 months. And basically, over time, that would happen more and more, and we thought it was like nerve damage related to the accident. Because it was like months later, I still had like little slivers of glass coming out of my hands, and it was like
just the body rejecting the things that
long-term effects from that thing. Yeah, and so basically over time, it would just hurt more often, and so I eventually went in the beginning of 2005 to a neurologist to have my quote-unquote nerve damage checked out, and he was like, "This is not a neurological issue. Have you had a scan?" I was like, "Yeah." But it had been years previous. And so test. There's something in there. Yes, there's something in there. There's really something in there. And, did a biopsy. And then he ultimately determined that it was cancer. And it was a type of cancer called Ewing's sarcoma. And so I test. Is it anywhere else in your body? No. And then I got right into chemotherapy. And they had told me ahead of time, my doctor was the only reason that you would lose your leg would be to save your life. But if it's a sarcoma, we have to remove the sarcoma and everything that it's touching. Right. So anyway, there's the story. Was in chemo pretty much at the beginning of the year. The surgery was in the middle, August 4th, 2005. And then got back into chemo, which really sucked. At that point, I'm like, y'all didn't get it. And, they're like, "No, we did, but takes 1 billion cancer cells to make a tumor the size of the end of your pinky. So this is just preventative measures." But so then I was in chemo till basically right before Christmas of that year.
Wow. So, and obviously that was kind of the motivation for Steps of Faith. So you said earlier that the opportunity came to you.
Yeah, it did.
So what's that story?
Yeah. So fast forward to 2013. So lost a leg in 2005. 2013, my wife and I were living in Nashville, Tennessee. We moved there in 2009 just for more opportunities to make a living as a musician. 2013, we had a brand new baby who showed up 6 weeks early. My wife was a teacher. There was no paid maternity. I was a musician. It was the beginning of the year. The phone wasn't ringing. And one day I was at the prosthetic clinic where I was a patient in Nashville, getting an adjustment done on my leg. And my prosthetist, funny sounding word, I said prosthetist, that's the doctor. If I had a whiteboard, I'd spell it out.
Right.
Some people do that for a living. They can't even pronounce it correctly. It's true. Anyway, he said, "Will you talk to, I'm fitting a guy with a leg for the first time who lost his leg to cancer. Will you talk to him on your way out? Just pop in and say hi." Yeah. It would do him good to see somebody who's on the other side of this, who's walking around well and everything. I was like, "Dude, I would love to do that. I feel like that's part of why this happened to me. I never get to have these conversations. Let's do it." Talked to the guy for the 5 minutes. And I was kind of looking around for like a new, like I was, brand new baby. It was hard enough to leave and go on the road for 2 months or whatever and be away from my wife. But then you've got this baby. It's just like, I didn't want to leave the house, let alone leave the city.
Yep.
And so I talked to this guy and I could see the hope in his eyes. And I just was like thanking God that I was able to, quote unquote, speak that language to this guy. It's a difference to me. Like, I can only imagine what you're going through. I feel for you. Then I know exactly what you're going through.
I've been there, done that.
I've been there and I can tell you it's going to get better. And so I just said, I wish that could be my job. And the next day, I told my wife that. Then the next day, I had another appointment with my prosthetist, and I was like, he was like, hey, thanks for doing that. I was like, how can I do that
more?
Yeah. So he introduced me. This is why I say the opportunity came to me. He introduced me to the guy that was his boss that owned the clinic, a guy named Rob Pittman. We were texting last night. And very long story short, we had a couple conversations, and I was like, I don't want to work at a prosthetic clinic. I'm not qualified for that. But he had explained to me, he had established a 501c3. That's the tax code for a nonprofit, tax exempt. And it was just sitting dormant, to do this thing, to help uninsured amputees get prosthetic limbs.
So he already had that established.
It was established, but it was a non-functioning entity.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
And so for a period of a few years, so he said, what if you come on, you do this thing and see if we can get this going? So I've said this 100 times, but it's like he tossed me the keys to a car with no engine in it and said, see what you can do with that. So, and he was involved early on and was the president of the board and changed my life. But then he rolled off the board pretty quickly after, because he was like, I built the board and wrote the mission statement and, turned it into a business. A nonprofit is very much a business. You go to your favorite local burger joint, you give them your money, they give you your favorite local burger, right? You go to a nonprofit, you go to Steps of Faith, you give us your money. We help somebody that's not you walk. So, but it's still otherwise very much a business.
Sure.
And
Transactions.
You benefit in other ways. So,
Right.
There's a lot of antiquated thinking around the nonprofit sector that the people who work those jobs don't need to be paid or whatever. There's no program without the staff.
Right.
So anyway, that's the origin story of Steps of Faith. And yeah, I called everybody I knew and said, check out what just happened to me. Because people listening right now, it's like, whoa, that's a cool part of the story. I didn't write it. It just, again, it happened to me. And so, but yeah, 10 years later and over 1,000 people were still kicking.
I mean, do you have a team that helps with fundraising and that?
Yeah.
Is this your full-time gig?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was my full-time gig right out of the gate, thanks to a big donation from that guy, Rob.
Nice.
He was like, you need a job and let me help this.
Get started.
And you can do this. You can help make this thing that I've dreamed about actually happen. And so, I didn't have a team for a long time. We had a very small board of directors that I built. It was just he and I early on. And then my friend, Dr. Mark came on, and then Mason came on, and, so it was a slow, Cactus Mosier, Wynonna's husband, came on.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And then those were the first 4 board members, 3 guys in Nashville, 1 guy in Kansas City. But yeah, now we are at, I have 2 other full-time staff members, and we actually just hired, last week, she just started a 4th employee part-time, and board of directors, and then the prosthetist. I mean, how it works is basically we help amputees all over the country that have no health insurance, and then the prosthetists, the doctors, they donate their labor, and then we pay for the parts.
Well, because I don't think a lot of people realize, because if it's not a part of your, if it doesn't happen to you or a family member, you really don't know what's up, right? Yeah. But I was reading that I think for your very first prosthetic, it was what, $30,000 or something like that?
So it was $30,000 that we had to come up with. It's a $60,000 prosthesis, and my health insurance at the time would only cover half of it. Thank you for covering all of it now these days, Blue Cross. But it's a racket. I don't know if you guys or your listeners are aware, but the health insurance scenario in this country is kind of a mess.
Yeah, actually I wanted to talk about it because that's one of my bullet points. Is that I've read articles where you mentioned specifically that, multiple times, that there are several failings in the healthcare industry that really prohibit people like you from getting what they need with the prosthetic. So maybe talk a little bit and shed some light for the listeners that have zero schema.
Yeah, I'll try to not get angry about this, but everything medical is expensive. And at this point, I think it's safe to say it's not my opinion. It is the truth that greed and fear are large drivers behind how people think and act in the United States of America.
You're not shedding any light here. Yeah.
Right. And even doctors are kind of under the thumb of health insurance companies,
for sure,
literally dictating how they take care of our health. They're playing in a rigged game, and drug companies. 75% of any commercial, if you're watching TV these days, is a drug commercial.
Sure.
That's what doctors are for. We don't need to know about Ozempic, although it is now Ozempic's world and we're all just living in it. Diabetes or not.
By the way, my wife and I joke about, they talk about the medicine and all the side effects.
Yeah.
We just say, well, just give us the disease because these side effects sound horrific.
Yeah. Remember there was that SNL sketch about some drug and it
Yes.
was like, may grow a tail.
Yeah.
It was like all these,
I
like,
do remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, basically it's a corrupt scenario that help, like no one should be, I say should be, and careful about should statements, in the business of making money. Everyone is in the business of providing a service. You're a real estate agent. You're a trash man. You are a prosthetic leg salesman. You're a drummer. You're a teacher, whatever. You provide a service, and if you do it right, you'll make
Compensated.
money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Health insurance companies, actions speak louder than words, are clearly in the business of making money, even off doctors. And it's corrupt, and it's a rigged game, and it's jacked up. And also, when it comes to prosthetics specifically, a lot of the issue is health insurance companies will be like, that seems expensive. Is that, quote, medically necessary? Like, we help people that have no health insurance at all, Steps of Faith, or no prosthetic coverage. Their Medicaid, this is not the case for Kansas or Missouri Medicaid, but Medicaid in some states does not cover prosthetic care for adults because they don't deem it, quote unquote, medically necessary.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Guys, this is
crazy.
real. I'm not,
nuts.
and so it's just like such backwards thinking, but it's common practice if it's rare that a health insurance company is denying a knee replacement. I have a knee replacement. Mine's just on the outside, you idiot. You know what I mean? It's like, so anyway,
Right.
I'll stop there, but it's a rigged game.
I got a
We're all
question.
under the thumb of these people.
So here's a question, and this is I'm so ignorant to it, so it's okay to talk to me like I'm 6. Why did your leg prosthetic cost $60,000?
Because everything medical is expensive and it's stupid.
So is it the same
But-
as like this one pill costs $10,000? Like
I could, sure. I mean, I'll shed a little more light on that. With prosthetics specifically, a lot of it is like supply and demand. You know what I mean? It's like, think of what this iPhone can do. That's crazy. Right? Not as important as a basic thing like being able to frickin' walk.
Right.
But we sell, our friends at Apple and whoever else sell millions and millions of these, right? So they're able to get like when you we're basically in the phase with prosthetics. Like when I was a kid, like a camcorder, like you would hold over your shoulder. That's like the size of a bazooka from a Schwarzenegger movie. Specifically, Predator is what I'm thinking of. Thank you. Him and Carl Weathers in the jungle, face paint, huge thing. So those camcorders were like legitimately like $1,000.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How much? Now it's not even a thing. It's all here on the phone.
$1,000 back in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, it's one of those things. Now, not all prosthetic limbs are $60,000. Some of them are $160,000. Some of them, but you're not
Does
going to
it make you fly?
It should, but you're not going to get one less than $5,000.
Okay.
So I always say this: there's a lot of different prosthetic limbs because there's a lot of different types of human bodies. So I have the thing that's appropriate for me. There's a microprocessor computer in it. That's not saying, you know what, I could drive a Honda, but I choose a Ferrari. No, that doesn't apply. This is the thing that is most appropriate for my body when I got it when I was 28 years old and still now as a 46-year-old man. So that's part of why it's expensive. It does a lot of things. Those things act more like a real leg and knee, But again, the bottom line is it's as simple as, how much does a Tylenol if you're in the hospital cost?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like $500.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like like a cough drop is $30. Yeah,
I don't want to glaze over this. Why does it have a microchip processor?
I knew you couldn't
I don't know how
let
much
that
time
go.
we have, but basically, like, if you are walking downstairs, okay, your knees don't buckle. Like you're creating resistance within your knees, right? So, like, if you're doing squats, your knees don't buckle. It's the same kind of thing, right? I'm not a squats guy, but you know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give you the visual.
Yeah,
your knees don't buckle. This does that. It creates
Okay.
resistance. I can walk down inclines I can walk downstairs, leg over leg. It functions more like a real knee, and it reacts to how I'm stepping on it.
So it can actually like interpret like grades, like if you're walking upgrade, downgrade.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we get into some fun stuff, I read something else that you had said, and I think it's important to address. I've heard you talk that people have misconceptions about amputees.
Sure.
So can you maybe just address that a little bit? What maybe some of those misconceptions are and how people can avoid those?
Yeah, I mean, the most common things are everybody thinks if they know I'm an amputee that it's because I'm a veteran, right? Because we've had a lot of warfare since 9/11, or everybody thinks, oh, Steps of Faith, so you help a lot of veterans and children. Let's shed some light on this. 500 people lose a limb every day just in the United States. Seems like I'm making it up. I'm not. It's true. It's actually a little over 500. So, and that's from cancer, diabetes, vascular disease, auto accidents, motorcycle accidents, that kind of thing, right? Farming accidents, you name it, sickness, all that stuff. Since 9/11, so modern warfare, basically, which is a long time, 2001, there's 1,558 combat amputees. 500 every day since then, but 500 a day since 9/11. Like you lost your leg because you stepped on a landmine or whatever, or you got shot or some terrible thing in war. 1,558
Total.
A day?
No.
total
in the last 20 years.
At all.
Holy smokes.
Yes. But, so it's literally less than 1% of the amputee population in the United States. This is not me saying something negative about the military.
No, of course not.
These
Just
are
facts.
stats.
Yeah, just facts.
So I'm asked all the time. And so I feel like it's important for people to know that. So no, we don't help veterans because the number is so tiny. And if we were asked, we would do it in an instant. But we also are not asked because if you're one of that 1,500 people, the government's covering the cost of the prosthetic.
Yeah,
Right.
the
There's a
VA's
lot of nonprofits to help veterans with a lot of things, and those are all great, but they don't need help with that. And kids, even if the parents don't have health insurance, usually there's the Shriners does incredible work and gets kids prosthetic limbs up until they become adults. And often there's just so many services for kids. It's just not, we've never been asked in 10 years. And, well over 1,000 amputees that we've helped.
Wow. So being a child of the 80s, you know the incident, the drummer of Def Leppard, right?
Yeah.
And that was such a big deal, right? And
Yes.
that's really the first time I remember as a child going, oh my gosh, here's a regular guy. He plays drums for an amazing band. He got in an accident, loses an arm, right? So is this a true story that I was reading? Because Bobby and I, we like to study, obviously, a little bit. More than what we always joke. More than what we did in high school, right? So how was it? So the drummer of Def Leppard actually called you, not once, because I think the first time you might have been sedated a little bit.
Yes.
But he called you again.
I don't know this. This is news to me. I don't know this story.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's true. Yeah. So I will preface by saying, so again, I'm 46. I started playing the drums when I was in 6th grade, 1988. So Def Leppard Hysteria was like, to me, it was an enormous album. What was like the record,
Yep.
So those records are still cemented in my head, my heart. Def Leppard Hysteria, the first 2 Hagar Van Halen albums, and of course, Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. Led Zeppelin and all that stuff came later for me. I was a kid. And so Def Leppard was everything to me. And kind of always has been. I love that band, and I actually got to see them last year, and they were unbelievable. They were like
still
so
really
good.
Still.
It was so much better than I expected, honestly. I just was like, this is incredible. Anyway, but they were playing, so this is in 2005, they were playing the night before my surgery to have my leg amputated. And a friend had suggested this, and every night I was in the hospital, it was like a crazy party. There was it was full of, I was there for like a week, just friends from all over the place. It was beautiful. And so someone had suggested, behind the scenes to my buddy Greg Tott, who still is on Johnny Dare's morning show since the very beginning. Greg, because I think The Rock was behind the show or whatever, the Def Leppard show. They were playing the T-Bones baseball stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where the Monarchs play now. And so they were like, basically trying to get Rick to come to the hospital, and then he was going to come, and then it fell through, and then he told me like, so we had this whole plan that came together and then fell through, and blah 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 blah. I was like, oh man, that would have been so incredible, you know. But then he did call the next day, and I was like right out of surgery, and exactly, I was like, hey man, I was like
loopy,
very
You're out of
loopy,
it.
and he was like, all right, mate, how about I call you tomorrow when you're not so sedated? And I was like, I didn't want to get him off the phone. I was like, this guy ain't calling me 2 days in a row, and he did.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was really, really great. And the funny thing is, we've not communicated directly since then, but we have so many mutual friends. He's asked for my phone number a couple times. Bill Cardwell, my friend who started CNC drums with his son.
Oh man,
Jake.
yeah.
But you know, Bill's like, Rick asked for your number again. I was like, give me his number. 2 years ago, Rick's wife called me, and then she was like, thought I'd want. So we've got all these people like, you know, how can we help you? I was like, you already did. I'm not trying to, what do you want me to ask Rick? I was like, nothing. I was like, I just want to talk to him and tell him thanks.
Yep.
Like, what a crazy thing to happen on the worst day of my life.
Yep.
My childhood hero called me and was talking to me about like eating spinach and like fighting cancer. And like, it was amazing. So,
And they just happened to be here in Kansas City at
Yeah,
that
That's
time.
nuts.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So I didn't get to see him
Serendipitous.
in the flesh and still have never met him and have not talked to him since, August, 5th. It'll happen again.
Wow.
We've communicated through many mutual friends many times.
That was a great accent. That would work for Ringo. That would work
That's
for.
right. That's right. Saw Ringo Friday night.
I know, man.
my dad. It was
He's so amazing. He's so amazing
Yeah.
live. Okay, DC, I don't know if you ever went to this, but I probably saw you guys and didn't even realize it. But the old Comedy Sports down in the River Market area.
Yeah.
So you were an improv actor
Yeah.
at Comedy Sports
Yeah.
with Jason, correct?
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah. So tell that story a little bit, how you guys came to be buddies and, how you got kind of out of the acting space to get maybe lean in more into music. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was doing both of those things I started playing drums in 6th grade, and it was also in my first play in 6th grade.
yeah.
Nice.
And so
What was it?
It was called The Beauty Queen of Cabbage Corners. I don't remember much about it other than like the picture. I just remember
The handbill?
No, like the picture of me in the play.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember being in the play. I remember it was hot, and that was it. Anyway. But yeah, into middle school and high school, I did all that. It was in all of the ways you could play drums at school. I did all the bands and all of the acting stuff I could do and theater stuff. I had a really crazy theater department in my high school, Shawnee Mission North, in the early 90s. And we had a class. It's like more crazy to me, all these years later. We had a class called ART, Advanced Repertory Theater, when you had to be chosen to be in the class and all these things. But it was basically a sketch comedy and improv comedy troupe class. And we put on a bunch of shows all year, and everybody had a job. My buddy David Way was the donut master, which meant he went with some drama teacher's credit card and bought donuts, once a week.
I would love him.
Yeah, he had a very important role, David Way. Shout out. Somebody is going to message me on Facebook like, David Way. Anyway, but he's still around.
That's what we do. We connect people here.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're
Just
connectors.
connecting-
Relationships.
Boom.
Yes. But my job was I was the producer of the improv show. There was one improv show that we did. And anyway, I could go on and on and on. I had a great theater department. And so that I was really into that and took to it and had some, I could do it and that kind of thing. And I had asked my teacher, one of my drama teachers from the ART class, Margaret McClatchy, she sent me to Comedy Sports like for R&D, like to go see a show,
Yeah. Do some research.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's what we did.
yeah.
Our drama class in high school went to do research and learn.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You see people really doing it, grown-ups doing this thing. So, and I knew that she knew the owner. And so shortly before I graduated high school, I said to her, I was like, hey, I need to get a job before I go to college over the summer. The owner of Comedy Sports. Do you think that you could put in a word and see if they're hiring to get me an interview to be a server? Just to serve
bus
pizza,
tables.
bus
Yeah.
tables, that kind of thing. She said, absolutely. And so then the next day she was like, okay, here you go. here's the info you need for Comedy Sports. And I said, oh, that's great. You got me an interview. She said, no, it's an audition. And I was like, for what? You got to audition to serve pizza and popcorn?
What?
And she's like, no, it's an audition to be in the company. And I like couldn't believe it. I was 18 and I auditioned and got in and really couldn't believe it. And so then they put you in a all of us that got hired. There was this big group of us. We would go every Sunday afternoon, and basically we're in a workshop where we were being trained, because Comedy Sports is improv. It's like short form improv games and a sporting theme. Think Whose Line Is It Anyway? But if it's two teams fake competing against each other, for points and that kind of thing. And at the same time, Jason was hired at the same time, and so we were in the same workshop class, and we were friends. And we were fast friends, and then I quickly learned he didn't have a car. And so I was off in his ride. And yeah, I pretty much from there, spent most every day with him for the next several years, So yeah, that's all that.
That was a big deal back in the day.
Comedy Sports?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. We thought it was amazing. Like, we were so impressed as a musical theater nerd.
Yeah, man.
Growing up as a musician who was an athlete but loved drama and singing and chamber choirs, I ate that shit up.
Yeah, we did all that. Yeah, it really was. And it was a really, no disrespect to the time. I mean, I was a kid, so whatever, group they had before that or after or whatever. But it was a really incredible time. And, Jason's been one of my best friends to this day, but also so is Corey and Ed and Jeremy and Eric. There was this group there, but all of these people, like I saw my friend Linda Williams, who came in when I came, and Jason and I came in, last week. It's like, I love these people. And it really, I've said this before, but doing at 18, being trained to improvise in that art form, in a acting comedic type thing, and doing like 30 shows a month, in front of packed audiences.
Talk about sharpen your saw.
Dude. And then also I was starting college playing jazz music at KU, which there's a lot of improvisation there as a musician playing drums. I really feel like it like rewired my brain and changed my DNA to make me more of a flexible person.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm really thankful for all of those things.
So do you have any, maybe one or two funny stories that you could share with us? Anything happened during those Comedy Sports, like, whether it was a night that something went a little crazy wrong or something like that?
The story that I kind of go back to over and over and over, that was one of my favorite things was, and again, this is probably, I don't know, let's say 96, maybe 97. So
that was the first time I went.
Yeah.
I was in 8th grade in 96, 97.
Yeah.
I probably saw you.
You probably did. I mean, seriously, I was there like every night. So just for context, not everybody walked around with a cell phone at that time, right? In 96, 97.
Basically, nobody.
They were just rolling out.
Most people didn't have a cell phone. Right. I didn't even get one until a couple years later. And
they were mostly bag phones.
Bag phones. That's what I had. Yeah. I was like, don't use this. As my mom said, like, unless you're an absolute...
Because it was $18 a minute.
It's $18 for 10 seconds. Do not use
this. Dude, totally. It was a nightmare. Anyway, so knowing no one had cell phones, we played this game one night that we'd often play at the end of a show called Object Freeze. And so the referee would go around and had this big bag, and people would just put some random object in there, like something that was in their purse or their wallet or, whatever. And then he would come up with the bag, and then there was a stool in the middle of the stage, and then all of the cast would turn around, and then he would, blow the whistle, and then everybody would turn around, and it's like the first one to try to make a joke off the top of our head about the object that we're just seeing for the first time. That's it, And so someone the ref puts a cell phone. And so my friend Ed Goodman, who's one of the guys I just mentioned, sees the cell phone, runs up, grabs a cell phone, looks at it with his crazy beady eyes, and then there was a door right off the stage to go outside, and then windows all around, and just grabs a cell phone, looks at it, and just takes off out the door.
Just runs.
And didn't come back.
And stole a cell phone?
And no one... Now, this was at the end of the show. We never recovered because he's gone. And everyone's still just laughing for like a good couple minutes. And then after about a minute and a half or whatever. Yeah, after a minute and a half or whatever, you can see, and the whole audience can see it because it's right behind us in a window. You just see him, talking on the phone outside the window, like, ha, 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 and people are just losing. And we're trying to, he's upstaging us. Like, we can't, the show can't continue. So then he comes in and they just ended the show. But again, the thing that you want to have happen in a comedy show was happening. I remember we kind of got in trouble for it. He got in trouble for it, which was funny. But the thing that was actually happening was, just the owner guy got mad. You know what I mean? Because like you broke but people.
That was improvisation.
And people were laughing. That's what you want them to do, right? Yes. I mean, it was, he would say now that he was wrong, that he was upset at that time.
Isn't it so funny that something like that, like literally can't translate? Right. No one could ever do that joke again.
Yeah. Right. It'd be like my 15-year-old seeing that. He'd be like, why is
that funny?
Funny about that?
Yeah, exactly. It was contextual to the time. But it was one of my
100%.
favorite memories of a comedy special.
100%.
That's amazing.
I get asked this question a lot as a musician, as a business owner. People say, they ask us all the time, people we coach or whatever, they'll say, like, how did you get so good at business? How do you know how to do these things? And I'm curious if you're the same way. I always answer with, I was in a band at a young age, and I had to run the business of the band. So, I mean, whether we're talking marketing or interpersonal relationships, communication, website design, message boards, right? Communicating with people that way, rejection, travel, like all this stuff helped me not only be a better business person, but just a well-rounded person in general. I mean, do you experience or do you feel the same way?
100%. Yeah. I mean, this show in Florida, we're getting paid $50 and a 5-pack of Schlitz.
Not a 6.
A 5-pack?
A 5-pack.
Actual story. It might have been $100, but it was a 5-pack Schlitz.
I remember those days.
This was also the show where there was like, there's like those lights that you kind of swing. They're real cheap. They're like on a wire, and they've got like an aluminum thing around the light bulb, so you could push them. Right? They could move around,
and they were hotter than Hades.
Exactly. So there was one. This was a show where I was trying to just like fire people up in the crowd where no one knows us. This band from Lawrence, Kansas, and I could hit it with the stick, and so I went to move the light to make it swing. To rock and roll chaos, and so I hit it too hard with the stick, and it just burnt the light out. It just broke the light bulb, and it was the only light on the stage.
On the stage?
Oh no!
I didn't think that through. I was a very young man.
It's a very upscale event space.
It really was. I don't even remember where we were.
We had one can light,
one can light, and we got paid $100 and a 5-pack of Schlitz. So no, I mean I say that all the time. Steps of Faith, I think of everything in business, in my business with Steps of Faith, it's the same.
Yeah.
And it really even is the same when it comes to, I'm actually even able to play drums as a fundraising device. You know what I mean? But it's like a band. I actually think that Steps of Faith is like the musical theater moment you mentioned is not lost on me. I was one of those guys too. I have a Jesus Christ Superstar tattoo.
Look at that.
How about that? I actually think that Steps of Faith, the way I look at it, is it's more than just a band. It's like a musical. Mm-hmm. So in the musical, you've got the band, you've got the dancers, you've got the actors, you've got all these departments that come together, and then the director is just the guy who pulls it all together. Yep. The director of the musical. That's how I see my role in Steps of Faith. And it really is, it's like the way marketing, the way we promote things, whatever. I mean, it's really like I don't know any better. It's like I don't have a degree in anything, definitely not nonprofit management, right. And so, but 10 years later, it's just the same thing. It's just like, when you make with the performing arts, when you're doing it as a team sport, that I was not an athlete. So those were my team sports. And it's like, I've said this 100 times, it when you're putting it all on the line like that, and I'm sure, team actual sports with footballs and basketballs are the same kind of thing. But there's a vulnerability to it of like committing to a character or singing a frickin' song or playing music or whatever. And it's scary. And it just fosters intimate relationships. You know what I mean? Close relationships fast. I think that's how Jason and I became friends fast. I think that's how, my early bandmates are still my brothers to this day. So 100%, it's like the lens of what I know, which is being in a band.
Yep. I thought you might have parallels there.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, whether it's drama class, bands, or whatever, what you guys are doing, people see you on stage and they're resonating like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I would be so nervous to go up there.
Sure.
So, I mean, for you to go up there is no different than someone being at the basketball court shooting free throws, man. Like everyone's looking at you and that's super nerve wracking.
Yeah.
Right. And that just helps you in this journey that you've been going on for a while. You've had the incident happen. You don't have to have your degree in college, but you know how to work with people, right?
Yeah, and make friends.
Yeah.
And like be nice.
DC, you were talking. Actually,
Well, it's just like always be cool or something.
Hey,
Whoa.
you need a sound effect right there.
Oh wait, hold on.
There we go.
There it is.
That's the first time we've ever
I've
done
never
that.
used it live. I know. I hope it actually comes through.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
at the parallels with college and what you're talking about, DC. Actually, I typed this up in my notes. Playing in a band was life's university.
Oh, big time.
I mean, that literally that's exactly what
I
it
lived
was.
in Lawrence for 6 years, but I was only in college for one. So it was very much, I often refer to college years
as the time just living in Lawrence.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good place to be when you're that age.
Yeah, it was good. It was great. It was a great time.
For sure.
You probably never hung out at a place called The Wheel.
Oh
or
my
anything,
gosh.
haven't you?
I actually didn't spend a ton of time there, believe it or not. But
Hawk.
I did. Those weren't my scene, but the Wheel is where you would go to get pyramid pizza. And
All day.
Often Jason would come to town just so that we would hang out and go to pyramid
You
pizza.
hanging out at the Granada or at Bottleneck.
I was usually at the Bottleneck or the Granada.
I remember playing at those places back in the day.
Yeah, that's usually those, Replay Lounge, Louise's on Mass Street. Those were my spots back in the day.
So, we have to bring this up because I want to maybe end the show with this, plus give our buddy Clarky a shout out.
Here we go.
So you play in this awesome yacht rock tribute band, right? Called Summer Breeze, playing all kinds of cool stuff like the Beach Boys or Christopher Cross or Hall & Oates, right?
Yeah.
So our buddy Tim and Jamie Clark, I don't know if you know them at all, but they come to all of your guys' shows, and so
awesome.
We're gonna give them a shout out. But talk us through why you guys started that band in particular, because it is one of those things where I don't think people naturally just say, "Oh yeah, I love." Or my favorite kind of music is Christopher Cross, right?
Sure,
Or my favorite artist is Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
But when you hear that stuff, you're like, man,
It's just all feel good, man.
Everyone loves it. So
that's it.
Like, and then do you guys also have like this battle royale with Yachtly Groove?
Hey man,
Just kidding.
I don't know those guys. We can only be so territorial about our band that plays music that's somebody else's music.
Right, just totally. There's like tribute bands for everything.
Exactly.
And there's multiple.
Yeah. My friend Sean Poors, another incredible drummer from here who played in Outhouse and plays in the Zeros. He has joked that there is the Zeros have been an 80s new wave band for 20 years. They just celebrated.
I played a show with them on Saturday at the Plaza Art
Fair. Yeah, they're the best. He did joke that there is he was like, oh, there's a band in town that's a Zeros cover band. He didn't say it's another 80s. He's like, they're a Zeros cover band. And no disrespect, they do literally dress the same as the Zeros.
Seriously?
So yeah, yes.
This is a thing?
Yeah, we don't need to. I'm not trying to spread hate. But so I don't have turf war with anybody. If somebody else wants to play that music, it's not my music.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I will say we had a Journey tribute band before that, and then we stopped doing that, and I wouldn't do it again because there's another Journey tribute band in town.
Yeah.
Different structure, different folks. There's a lot of love for yacht rock, so there's plenty to go around.
Yeah, there
and
is.
it's hard music to play, so good luck. And there was actually, it might be that band. We have a good friend and super fan, Chris Hammond, who goes by Coco, who saw one of the other yacht rock bands, and he said that they were like really good. So
Here in town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At Knuckleheads. He was like live texting me as it was
Gotcha.
happening because he was like winning skeptical and he loves us so much. Anyway, no, man, yacht rock is just fun music.
It is.
Way back in the day, before there was a name to it, my buddy Bill Pyle, who's a big musical influence on me, great DJ, great friend, great taste in music. He was making yacht rock mixtapes before
it was yacht rock.
There's a name
as a
before that
genre.
name was there, and he called it Slow Jams for Soccer Moms.
That's perfect.
And it was yacht rock.
I hope he started a Spotify playlist.
I know.
Toto
yeah.
and
Yeah. So anyway, and so we would do these DJ nights together, and then we'd play some of that stuff. We'd play Ambrosia, and then play a Beastie Boys song, and then play a Journey song or whatever. And in the early 2000s, people were like, "This is crazy," And so, really, it was my wife and I were getting ready to move to Nashville. The Journey band, Stone in Love, was very
one of my favorite Journey songs.
Oh, it's so good. We did well. I mean, everybody loves Journey, and we were good at it. I would say we take fun very seriously.
Right.
And my buddy JD Warnock could sing those songs.
He was playing
those
Steve,
notes.
okay.
He did the Steve Perry. He even had the weird tuxedo jacket, and a great wig. Anyway, but so it was like, gosh, I was driving with my wife on some long road trip, and I was like, what if we put together a band one time before we moved to play these yacht rock songs? And it was like, this would be so hard. But if we got in the ballpark, it would be awesome. And so we did it. It was so fun. So we squeezed in one more show before we moved. And then it was like, oh, well, we're going to go home for Thanksgiving. Let's do one more. For almost 15 years later, we're still doing it. And the crazy thing is, I say this as I'm as surprised as anyone, but more pleasantly surprised than anyone, is that the audiences have grown. We went from selling out the old record bar or whatever to, the last show we played, we sold out Knuckleheads outside.
Yeah, it's 1,000 people.
Yeah,
Did you
man.
really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's huge.
And it was wonderful. And the crowds have grown, and I think more people kind of know, oh, yacht rock, like I know what that means. And it's typically an older crowd that grew up with the music just like us, and it's been a oddly beautiful and life-giving experience to have that band. And it's the house band for Thundergong, and we've been through a lot together, and it's really I get to do it with my wife and some of my best friends.
Allison, she sings in the band, right?
She does. Yeah. So it's really been a thing that we've really loved and from out of the gate, but now it's like we take it very seriously, and we really cultivate it and strategize and try to really take care of it, and just so thankful that it's such fun music, and we're just so thankful that people are still coming and that the crowds are growing. It's like wild.
Well, do you want to share your guys' website? Because I don't want to date and ask, hey, when's your next show? But where can they go to see like the list of upcoming shows that you guys have?
So we just play a handful of times a year, and it's summerbreezekc.com. Summerbreezekc.com. Okay. And the next one is
playing at Thundergong. Yeah.
The next one is Thundergong. Yeah, we'll be the house band. And it was weird. The first year there were people that were like, I thought they were joking. They were upset that we didn't do any yacht rock songs the first year. It's like, we're playing with Wynonna and like Tech Nine. What are you talking about? Like you're mad that these no one strained, not famous people didn't play a, Kenny Loggins song? And yes, they were. But no, then we're playing Thanksgiving Eve. We're doing Knuckleheads Garage.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
That'd be a great show.
That'll be a party. We'll definitely have to hook up with the Clarks and go check that out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Man, Billy, thank you so much for coming, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
This has
man,
been
it's
awesome.
a lot of fun.
Thanks for, studying up. And
of
these
course.
things. I once did a podcast that was not local, and it's not around anymore. But the guy's like, so your story's crazy, man. Like,
oh gosh,
tell us about it. Like, you did this and this. So just, tell us that. And I was like, oh, cool. So he's like, it was like,
you probably thought this at that.
Here
that's how
we
this
go.
was gonna
I
go.
did not
like-
think that, but I'm glad it wasn't.
No, and that's probably why we're up for best podcast in Kansas City.
There we go.
After the pitch,
Yes.
right?
There we go.
Today's the last day for voting.
Was
so.
it? Maybe you could get a vote in before you take off.
That's
later
right.
on.
That's a requirement.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else that we'd like to promote for you? Website for your organization?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Please. Yeah. So we're putting together Thundergong. It's November 11th. That has its own website, thundergong.org.
With a G.
With a G. Thank you. Not sure when this airs, but as of this day, we do still have tickets for sale. They've been on sale not quite a week as of right now. But it's a thing that we spend a lot of time planning to raise a lot of money for Steps of Faith, but Steps of Faith is in business helping people walk again, getting prosthetic limbs, arms and legs for people all year round. So people you don't have to come to the show to support us. The cliches about fundraising are true. Every dollar goes in the same bank account and goes towards that mission. Steps of Faith Foundation.org.
Love it.
Perfect.
You know, I do got to give one more shout out because I think this just happened, but wasn't Brendan Hunt, Coach Beard, on Wheel of Fortune like recently, and he won like $300,000 and donated it all to Steps of Faith?
Yeah. So this was.
Are you serious?
This was last night.
Yeah.
But Brendan Hunt was on Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. So each person is playing for a charity, right? And he chose us, and it was over $300,000. I think it was 328.
It's incredible.
It just happened, so I still can't.
You haven't processed it yet.
No, it's crazy.
So, when did you find out? Like, did they just air the show last night and we had recorded it a few weeks earlier?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So he told me, I've lost track of time. Let's say a month ago, not that long ago. Might have been 5-6 weeks ago. But he said short text. You know, we've been in touch a lot lately, planning Thundergong and stuff. And
he was just here 2 days ago too.
Yeah, and I didn't even
at
get
Arthur
to
Bryant's.
see him. Yeah, doing another charitable thing for
Nice.
Big Slick. But he was like, I'm doing Celebrity Wheel of Fortune tomorrow. I want to play for Steps of Faith. Can you give me, some tagline thing to say to talk about the organization? And I was like freaking out, and I sent him a bunch of info. And I was like, I can send you way more, less. You tell me. Didn't hear from him about that. And then fast forward to just a few weeks ago, I was actually on a trip with some friends and Jason and Brendan met us for dinner. And I was like, no news is good news, right? You got the text and that did happen and everything. And he just went, yep. And he wouldn't.
He can't talk about it.
He can't talk about it.
And so, then when he had the date a couple weeks later, he was like, here's when it's airing. That's all I can tell you. So.
Did you guys have a watch party?
My family did. We were all going crazy. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Gosh.
So we didn't know the outcome. The producers had reached out and told us that there was a minimum that we were getting, which they said that earlier on the show. Every charity is getting a minimum of $30,000. When she said that, I was at dinner with my family.
You're like, oh my gosh, that would be
phenomenal.
amazing.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, 30 grand. She's like, no, that's the minimum. I'm like, that's amazing. And then she said, we can't tell you the outcome, but it might be
11
a lot
times
more. And then I was like, okay, great. And then we went over some logistics, of how we could promote it. And then at the end of the conversation, she's like, remember, it might be a lot more. And I was like, okay.
Like maybe,
Right.
maybe 50 you're thinking probably.
I was like, what if we got, I didn't, man. I just was open-handed about it.
330
we're getting
grand.
30 grand, so we'll see what happens. But it was like 328 or something. So I still haven't really processed it. It's to get that. We've raised more money from, say, the last Thundergong, but that's from like a lot of people.
Right.
This is like our buddy going on out of the goodness of his heart, choosing this. Happened to be very good at game shows, Brendan. He almost won Jeopardy, Celebrity Jeopardy.
Wow.
And so he's just incredible dude. Just unbelievable, talented sweetheart of a man. I love him so much.
Yeah.
We're so thankful.
But still, even if you're like a rock star Wheel of Fortune person, like my grandparents were, because they watch it nonstop.
Yeah.
You still have to have the thing hit, right? I mean, these things still have to break your way.
That's in there, dude.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, definitely for those that have not, if you're living under a rock and you haven't watched Ted Lasso on Apple TV, make sure you support them because you will cry tears of joy at every single episode.
It's wonderful. It's not expensive. Get Apple TV. It's
Seriously.
not. It's just it's a streaming channel. It's not about soccer. Check it out.
Best show streaming anywhere. Man, Billy Brimblecom, thank you so much for joining the show. Guys, make sure to get your tickets for Thundergong Saturday, November 11th. You can go to thundergong.org. Make sure to check out Steps of Faith organization.org. Also, where you can donate to Steps of Faith directly through the website. Also, check out summerbreezekc.com for some good, easy listening tunes. at Billy Brimblecom for Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff. Man, thank you so
Awesome
much,
job,
Billy.
man.
Thank you,
You
guys.
killed it.
Guys,
Great
this is
job.
a lot of fun. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
We appreciate you. Guys, this has been the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr and Darren Copeland. Today's special guest, Billy Brimblecom. Be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Always Be Cool Podcast. Take care, guys, and always be cool.
Take care.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Darren and Bobby thank you from the bottom of their hearts.
They hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave them a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in our community.
Also, feel free to let DC and BK know which business or community leaders you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on social media. See you next time for a new episode. And remember, always be cool.
This podcast is powered by Summit Lending, NMLS number 1850081, Equal Housing Lender.